Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, we've got a really interesting show today because we have got some fantastic programs that we're going to be presenting and talking about today. One is CancerCare, and we're going to talk about Camp Sunshine and show a video clip. And it's just going to be a great show of the kind of support that there is out in this world.
Yeah, Mom, as you said, we're going to talk about CancerCare today and talk about grief support. And we have two guests today. The first one is Bill Goeren, who is a licensed clinical social worker and the director of clinical services at CancerCare. And I've been to CancerCare, and it is a fabulous organization, beautiful offices. Bill brought me there, and I did an in-service training on sibling loss. And I so appreciated the fact that they brought me in to talk about, you know, a loss that's so minimized and unacknowledged, which is the death of a sibling.
Absolutely.
So
I know whenever you get a chance to talk about that, that's an important.
Yes, that is my
Important
sweet spot. And then the other person is someone that I've kind of known on the internet for years, and I'm finally meeting her. Her name is Nancy Cincotta. She is the psychosocial director of Camp Sunshine, which is in Maine.
And we'll be showing a little video clip of that, and we're also going to show a video of CancerCare.
Yes.
And Bill Goeren, welcome to the show today.
Thank you
Hi,
very
Bill.
much. I'm happy to be here.
So great to have you on. You have
Thank
such a
you.
great website, CancerCare. It's a national organization.
It is a
isn't
national organization. CancerCare was started in 1944 and by a group of oncologists at that time to help them with dealing with their patients at the time. And that mission really hasn't changed. And although we started out as a local New York City tri-state area organization, about 15 years ago, we became a national organization providing services via telephone and online for a national audience in all 50 states of the United States and about 90% of the counties across the country.
Wow. And I know that some of my former students work for CancerCare, and they're social workers.
Right.
And you also work with children, because you have a fabulous room of dolls and toys for kids.
We have a wonderful playroom. We offer our services to anyone affected by cancer, and that includes children 5 and above, all the way through the entire spectrum of the cancer experience, and that is for people with cancer, that is for the caregiver, and that is for the bereaved. So we do see children. We provide play, psychotherapy, play counseling to children 5 and above. And most of the children that we see are children affected by cancer. So that is the siblings of, the child of, the grandchild of someone with cancer. We do see children with cancer, but the predominant children that we see are children affected by cancer.
So,
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to suggest that we might want to see the bereavement clip
I
of
like
the CancerCare. We have a
Absolutely.
really nice bereavement clip, and you do talk about how important it is, the gentleman who's doing it, to have groups and that kind of thing.
Yes,
So let's take a look at that.
yes.
CancerCare offers bereavement services through individual face-to-face bereavement support and through face-to-face support groups and online support groups. The services are free, and they're available to anyone who's experienced the loss of a loved one to cancer. Cognitively, many people know that they're not the only ones who've experienced the loss, nor will they be the only ones who've ever experienced the loss, but emotionally it feels like an entirely different story. Everybody will grieve in their own way and in their own time, but a support group can be exceedingly validating and normalizing for people who think that they are all alone. So when people are with other people in a bereavement support group, their feelings are validated, their experiences are normalized. They say that the pain of the loss is always there, but the intensity has abated. You have to allow the grief experience to unfurl naturally according to its own rhythm and beat. In encouraging people to tell their story, you're facilitating that process.
You have got a lot of wonderful clips on your site, I must say, and some of the takeaways for that, for people that are watching, are so important. If you've had a death to cancer, a loss in your family, telling your story, and I love the way he says letting it unfold.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important, I think, and as you know, that being able to be with other people who have experienced something similar to what you've experienced is really vital, and it's an important part of this process of working through the grieving process. And we do this in groups, face-to-face groups for the tri-state area clients. We also do this online. We currently have 44 online support groups running at this time, which are about 8 or 9 bereavement groups. And those bereavement groups are divided according to basically the population that comes to us. So we have young adult bereavement groups, we have bereavement groups for teenagers, and we have, of course, bereavement groups for adults. And those adult bereavement groups could be for people who have lost a spouse or adults who have lost an older parent.
Well, Bill, I love all these groups.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering, what is unique about losing someone to cancer versus another kind of loss?
That's a very interesting question. I think losing someone to cancer, the important thing about that is that when someone is diagnosed with cancer, death walks into the room. And so they're immediately beginning to deal with how their lives have changed, how their lives have been sort of inextricably altered from that diagnosis. And that the cancer diagnosis not only affects the individual, but it's really a family disease. So that everyone in the family has experienced some sort of trauma because of the cancer diagnosis. So we look at the family as a unit and one that needs to have their issues addressed and really giving them the opportunity to be with other people who are experiencing that type of change, loss, and shift because of the cancer diagnosis.
Talk about the online. How does that go if I come online for groups?
So the online group is a chat room, really, which is password protected and social work facilitated. And it is not a live chat room, but it is a chat room that's available to the person who participates in the group 24/7. So that somebody who is busy being a cancer caregiver or someone who is bereaved, still working, and really doesn't have the time to be able to commit to a specific time and day to attend, for example, a face-to-face group or individual counseling at CancerCare, they can go online, they can go into their group, and they can really talk to the other, not in real time, but talk to the other group members about what they're experiencing, what their days have been like, what their issues are, how they're coping with or not coping with certain issues or life at that point. So it really is a space for people, a safe space for people to really share what they're going through, to learn from others, and to feel support from others. And it is the wonderful thing about the online groups, it's a national group. So there's people from all over the country who are participating in the group.
Part of what I like about this is when my brother died, he didn't die of cancer, but he died in a car accident. But when he died, the grief for me, the intensity and the time I felt the most alone was in the middle of the night. Everybody was asleep.
Exactly.
I was no longer at school.
Exactly.
I mean, I had nothing to do and I couldn't sleep. And at that time there was no internet. So to be able to get on the internet at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning and get support virtually 24/7 is pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing. And it's a common theme, I think, with people who are grieving, that during the day when they're around, if they're able to be around and socializing or going to work or shopping, that they feel better during the day. But it's when they're home alone and they feel the absence and they feel the loss when they're in their homes, that this is that time when they are able then to reach out to others and just to be able to connect to others and feel that community within the online support group platform. It's really, really a wonderful, wonderful service.
I wanted to ask you, is there a stigma around cancer? I mean, as far as people talking about it and that kind of thing?
I think there still is. I think that I remember when I was younger, I remember people referring to cancer as the big C.
Right.
And I think that's somewhat lessened over time because of I think, because of HIV. I think in some ways HIV sort of took the mantle away from cancer as stigma, but there is still that stigma. There is still that concern, that fear, that about talking about it, about revealing it, about whether they're going to feel discriminated against, either socially or familially or at work, that people still have concerns about being around other people with cancer because they know, I think they intellectually know that it's not contagious, but somehow emotionally they feel if they're around it, something's going to happen.
It is true. I think it brings out a lot of anxiety in people.
It
I mean, I've
does.
had skin cancer 7 times. And thankfully it's nothing terminal, but you know, it's interesting, even with my skin cancer, telling people, they get really anxious and then all of a sudden they say, how did you know? What were the signs? I mean, it's like they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about me at that point.
Right.
They're thinking about, could I have it? Could I get it?
Right.
How do I prevent it?
Right,
They
right.
go into that panic mode all of a sudden. So it's like, sometimes you don't even want to tell people because you know they're going to make it about them all of a sudden.
Right. And I think that's it's really part of the cancer experience is finding out socially and finding out from your community where the support is and who is going to be a part of that support structure, that support network. And I think that's what people do when they come to cancer care is they find a network, they find a community, they find other people that they can identify with. I think it's wonderful to speak to professionals. I'm a professional, but sometimes there's nothing like being in the room with other people who are going through what you're going through and being able to identify and clue into their process and their strategies and their coping mechanisms.
And even their memories of the last days, because you know, watching your loved one die of cancer is traumatic.
It is.
And sometimes people don't understand that piece that haven't had that kind of a loss.
Right. And sometimes that to come to terms with that loss is an individual process, and for some people that process begins immediately after the loss, and for some people it happens a year or 2 or sometimes 3 years later that they begin to allow themselves to begin to unfold, as Glenn said in the video, to unfold that process and unfold those feelings and to be able to share and to really look deeper into that grieving process, which I think doesn't end. I think it is just as he says, it just, you know, the intensity just lessens over time.
Yes, I love that he said that. The grief, the intensity really changes, and also we can recover a lot quicker from that intensity.
We can.
You know, we recently went to ADAC, Association of Death Educators, and our friend, Middle Block, showed her father dying of cancer.
Jill Lamora
Jill
Harrington.
Lamora Harrington showed a whole hour of her father, how active he was, and then going through the process of dying from cancer.
Yeah.
She showed everything, including the hospice care. And you know, as she said, I don't think people realize taking somebody home and going through hospice is not an easy thing.
No, it is not an easy thing, and it's an important thing. And I wish this country is become more open to palliative care and hospice care. I think that the benefit structure, it really doesn't lend itself to allow more people to participate in home hospice. I think the numbers still show that most people die in the hospitals, and they die in a somewhat sterile and unfriendly
But if you take them home, it's tough.
But
that
it's
was
tough.
her point. It
It's
is very,
difficult.
very tough, and I think that after it's over, I think people probably need to, I mean, sometimes they don't feel like they did as much as they could have, or they wish they died differently, or they wish they'd taken them home in hospice, you know, and they wish they hadn't left them in a nursing home or a hospital. But the reality is, not everyone can do that.
Not everyone can do that. The reality
very
is
hard.
it's very, very difficult, and unless you have a very strong support network, or you're able to afford the care that a person who is dying of cancer needs, it's near impossible, especially if you're working, if you're taking care of children, if you have other major responsibilities. I mean, life just doesn't stop
Right.
when you take someone home.
Yeah. So I think sometimes people do feel guilty after the
Yeah,
death.
I
They
think they
felt
do.
like they should have. They say, oh, they wanted to die at home. They're not
And I
able
think
to do it.
that's why these groups are so powerful, because you can go in and say, look, I felt guilty, and other people will say, you know what, I can relate to that because I felt
Right,
guilty.
right,
You don't
right.
feel like you're alone, or that there's anything
Right.
crazy or strange about the way you're feeling.
And he said on the tape, normalizing.
Yes.
Right.
You know,
I think
you're not
feeling,
alone.
Not feeling alone is an essential part of this process, and knowing that there are other people out there who are experiencing or have experienced what you're going through or have gone through.
Yeah.
Is just it's incomparable, and it's
And
it's
you
so
can have some
worthwhile.
family system issues.
Absolutely.
You know, you can have some arguments with your siblings and all that kind of thing that are connected with all this. So
Right,
there's a lot going
right.
on after the loss.
Right, and you know, I think cancer sometimes brings out the best in people, and sometimes it brings out the worst in people, and
Right.
that also applies to the family unit too. So some families can pull together and be there for each other, and sometimes it can really be a distraction, and it can really rip the fabric of a family unit apart, and hopefully that's. For those people, they'll look at and try to find a place to go to help heal those wounds.
And I love that you're presenting this whole program and all that, and it's absolutely fantastic. And
Thank
now we're going to have a little bit about cancer care with Camp Sunshine, and we can talk some more with you, Bill, and
Wonderful.
with
Thank
Nancy
you.
also. So let's watch that roll in for Camp Sunshine.
Camp Sunshine is located on 23 acres of tranquil lakefront property in Casco, Maine. In this peaceful and intimate setting, the camp provides year-round recreation and support for children with life-threatening illnesses and their immediate families at no cost to them.
One of the things that happens here is that you can be with another family for maybe 20 minutes and you feel as though you've been friends for years.
Where it's not like you're just sending your kids off to camp, because it's a family issue.
Sunshine provides 24-hour on-site medical care for the children who come and their families.
The camp is run predominantly by volunteers. They are the spirit and soul of Camp Sunshine. For each session, approximately 65 volunteers from around the country generously give their time, their hearts, and priceless support to the families.
I think my favorite part is at the end of the day or in between sessions when the kids come back. And they're happy.
Oh.
And you ask them, so how was it? There hasn't been one time that they haven't loved what they're doing.
Well, great video on Camp Sunshine. I want to go to Maine.
Nancy's done so much in the grief and loss world.
Yeah.
I have known her name for so many years. I'm so glad I've finally been able to meet her.
Nice to meet in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been going up to Maine for this Camp Sunshine?
Camp Sunshine's been in existence since 1984. I've been involved since about 1986. For many years, I worked predominantly in the city, and Camp Sunshine was my avocation. But in 2001, we opened a facility, and we are the only of our kind in the country and actually in the world. We're the only place that is devoted to a retreat model for families kind of exclusively. So we work with kids with a variety of life-threatening illnesses, many kids with cancer, kids with brain tumors, kids who've had solid organ transplants, and we kind of are connected to families throughout the process, through the illness, through survivorship, through dying, and then in the bereavement period.
Now, do you connect with them when they leave Camp Sunshine then? Do you have some way to connect with them while they're back at school or whatever?
Our families come from all over the country, and in some of the rare illnesses from all over the world.
Wow.
And in some ways, what we've been doing for the past 30 years is kind of building communities. So when you talk about how people need to be connected and to not feel alone, you know, the model is an interesting blend of recreational support and psychosocial support. And the group work program is pretty phenomenal, and in every session there'll be multiple groups for parents, for siblings, for kids. And what happens is the community that forms stays connected in many different ways, through many different means, and on a whole host of levels. So you will have families when a kid is doing poorly, families will come from places in all different parts of the country to support each other. In the community of kids with brain tumors, you know, the bonds are very strong, very supportive, and people really, you know, if you ever wanted to understand how social support enables people to cope, it is a.
Now, what's the biggest family group you've ever had?
We've run you mean the size of a program?
No, them coming with a kid to camp.
Oh, we've had a family who's had maybe 8 kids.
Wow.
But our model runs anywhere from 20 families at a time to 65 families at a time. And so it's a large group model as well.
Yeah.
It's a very innovative psychosocial model, and it is a very intimate model, even though the size of it sounds as though it is not. But actually, I run groups of all sizes, small, medium, and large, in all different organizations. And one of the values of the large group model is actually that, you know, in a small group, you might not have like-minded people. But when you have a lot of people in the room, you actually, everybody finds a way to find somebody who is like-minded. And so that sense of isolation really actually dissipates pretty
that makes
quickly.
sense. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, it's
There's
very
going to be
interesting.
someone that's going to identify
Correct.
with whatever you've been through.
Correct. So it's the
Yeah.
opposite of what
Yes.
people think. So the skill is managing the large group, but it's very interesting. And if you are a sibling, you're in a place where there's a whole cohort of siblings. And if you're a kid with cancer, you know, everywhere you turn, there are people who are very much like you. And
I love this, Nancy, because you're bringing people together that, like, I'm thinking of myself, a sibling loss, where I didn't know anybody that had lost a brother or sister, ever. You know, not at my age. I was 20, my brother was 17. And you're bringing them together with other kids and other people and other adults that have had a shared experience.
And it's a very close shared experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes in bereavement programs there are people who've had all different kinds of losses. So one of the benefits of our program is, you know, if you're a child who lost a sibling, everybody in your group in the bereavement program is somebody who lost a sibling. So there's no way that you actually don't, even just taking home the group photo of your, you know, of those of you in the teen group, you know, maybe at school no one else is in that place, but in this photo everybody has shared that experience. And by having the whole family together, you have the interesting ability to work with kids of all ages and to work with parents and to also have the family learn how to have fun together again.
That's important.
And then to regroup with each other. And by the end of the week, everybody has both gained something individually and then collectively as a family. So it's helping families move forward together.
And you also, it's volunteers, so people can give back. Because nobody wants to be a victim. I mean, the idea of being able to come and give back and do it, especially for kids, well, for everyone, it's kind of an amazing thing.
Well, when you're in these groups, you can give back just by supporting other people in that group, which I love. I'm wondering, what do you think, what is the power of camp in helping people heal? I mean, what is it about camp that does that?
You know, if you go and read the things that people say about camp, the most common feeling is that people say that it's life-changing. And I think that in some cases people say it's life-saving. And I think that because we have a variety of programs, we have some that really have exclusively the psychosocial and the recreational base, and some have a medical component and an educational component to them, and bring together people who will be the treatment team that you will find if your child needs a bone marrow transplant or in certain situations. So I guess, I mean, some of what people refer to as the magic of camp, I think, is really like the sense of community, the sense of commonality with the issues, and there is a very, very empowered feeling. Again, we as professionals can work in a certain way, but when you enable people to help each other, the power in those connections are much stronger than anything that we can do as individuals. And it is wonderful to see that happen and to be able to facilitate that.
And I think it's a really cool thing that your husband's a medical director there
Yeah,
too, because
that's great.
you know, and Bill's here with us today. It's important to get men in the area of grief and loss and recovery because they've got such a voice out there, and I think sometimes men don't get the support they need because they don't see other men other groups or whatever, and they have such a great voice. We do a compassionate friends group, and I always, my husband comes with me, and we're just there. I mean, it's been 30 years for us, but we're there to say, hey, you're going to be able to do it. And he just has a whole different voice than I do, and a whole different presence. So,
and a different way of coping and grieving.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a wonderful combination, because I think men can see women can be, you know, maybe really emotional. I mean, not that guys aren't, but they see how women grieve, whatever, and women see how men grieve, and we can pick up all that. And boys can see at camp how girls behave, and girls can see how boys behave also.
One of the other wonderful things about camp is that, you know, when you run group work programs in other places, you work hard to engage men and to bring fathers in. But invariably at camp, we have fathers there, and they love it. They love the opportunity to talk. They love the fathers group, and they have a very strong voice. And it's really interesting because it allows a little bit of an opportunity to kind of equalize the voices for people in the family. Whereas, you know, I have been hospital-based for many years of my life, and you don't see fathers as much because they will maintain the work relationship often, and you more likely run a group for mothers. So having camp be this very special place for fathers also brings fathers back all the time.
And is
it's a
that
really
because you
great
think guys kind of, I'm stereotyping, but like to go and do things, and the idea of going to camp is interesting. The idea of going to an office in a hospital, not as interesting.
I also think there is a vacation component to it, and usually the family is together, and frequently a mother may not want to drive alone to Maine, and so there's more
Permission
of a
to have
presence.
Fun. Well, you know what, we're going to have to end the show, so I want you each to say how to get a hold of you to our audience for camp, and you, CancerCare. Go for it.
You can come to the Camp Sunshine website, www.campsunshine.org. It's easy to find all of us through that.
All right.
And CancerCare is at www.cancercare.org, or you can call our toll-free Hope line at 1-800-813-4673, and a social worker will answer the phone and begin to speak to you.
Well, thank you guys for being on the show
Thank
today.
you.
I feel like I ought to give them a hand, Heidi.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Nancy.
everything
Thank you.
you guys
Thank you.
do.
Thank you. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you again, too.
And thanks for watching our show today. And we want to remind you that there is hope, health, and support out there for you. And please visit these websites, and please tell your friends about it. And Heidi and I, as always, want to say to you, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.